Segment tonight, there is bad feeling across the USA as some Americans simply will not accept the fact that Donald Trump is president. In Berkeley, California, ground zero for radical violence. There was a clash Saturday night between pro and anti-Trump people. 7 injuries, 10 arrests. But we expect that from Berkeley. Even more troubling is Middlebury College in Vermont. Students and activists there shouted down a man named Charles Murray who was invited to speak at the school. In the course of that demonstration, one professor was actually hurt and had to go to the hospital. Joining us now from Boston, Marianne Marsh from Washington, Katie Pavlich. I expect this to get worse, this violence, Katie. Do you?
Of course I expect it to get worse because there haven't been a lot of consequences for the actions of the, quote, protesters when really they're violent rioters. What we saw with Mr. Murray is completely unacceptable. Not only did they shout him down at his speech, but they pulled the hair of one of the professors who dared to show up with him on stage, severely injuring her neck. And if you read his account of this, which you can find at aei.org, you'll find that it was a terrifying experience of getting pushed through a mob where they were trying to leave campus and the mob was surrounding their vehicle, knocking on the windows. And we have a choice here. The administration here has a choice. They can either punish the hundreds of students who engaged in this bad behavior, or they can let it keep going on. And the professors who also encourage the students should be in trouble too.
Absolutely. Now, here, Marianne, is a statement that I got from Lori Patton, the president of Middlebury. It says, because of the complexity of events and actions that took place, we have initiated an independent investigation to establish a baseline of information. Once our work is completed, the college will follow a process of determining a course of action for each individual understood to be involved in some way. That will take some time. Is that good enough?
Well, I think that's the right steps. I mean, when you look at everything Middlebury did to prepare for this appearance, they did all the right things. They prepared the students. They reminded them of the rules. They showed their IDs. They participated at a high level, including the president, at this. And now they're having an investigation. They have an honor code. When you read it, it's clear. Would you expel them if you were Ms. Patton,
if found to be these students threatened the speaker and somebody hurt the professor? Would you expel them?
There's a range on the honor code. If you inhibit communication or people's ability to move freely, there's a range of punishments from fines to expulsion. I think it depends on what each individual did, but clearly they're going to be punished.
Would you expel the worst offenders, Katie?
Absolutely. I would also ask the police to press criminal charges for allegedly assaulting the professor and Charles Murray. I mean, if you look at the details of this, it isn't just about free speech and shouting down a professor. This is about getting violent and making sure that he couldn't speak. And these students across the country have to understand that your First Amendment rights don't trump someone else's. And so in order to allow speakers to come in with different points of view, which, by the way, this doesn't happen to liberal speakers. It only happens to conservative speakers. You have an obligation to respect their First Amendment rights, allow them to speak, and if you want to have a back and forth, do it a Q&A, fine. But the shouting down violent behavior is unacceptable.
Middlebury Police Department, small department. I think maybe the Vermont State Police should get involved as well. They say they're going to investigate as well. Could be criminal charges. Obviously, the teacher could sue anybody who hurt her. But we'll follow the story. Ladies, thanks as always. When we come right back, Charles Krauthammer on the continuing conflict over the Trump presidency. And water's at the Trump Tower. Factor's coming right back.
The O'Reilly Factor, the #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Nice staying with us. And Bill O'Reilly in the Impact segment tonight as we report in the Talking Points memo, the USA getting pounded all over the world by political warfare between dissenters and Donald Trump. We look bad. Right now, there's absolutely no cooperation between the two parties, and as we just showed you, violence even breaking out across the country. Joining us from Washington to put things into somewhat perspective, Charles Krauthammer. Are you worried about the toll this is taking on America?
What I do worry about the trust in our institutions. You know, we don't really realize in normal times how much of a democracy hinges on trust and custom and habit. I mean, after all, you know, the peaceful transfer of power, that depends on the fact that the two sides, two parties, the two teams accept the rules, that you give it over if you lose an election. Generally speaking, that is held up for 240 years, and we do it. Now, so much of what we do, so the balance of power between the branches, respect for the judiciary, I mean, one of our presidents said, I think it was Andrew Jackson, about the Chief Justice, he has given his ruling, now let him enforce it. Well, you have to accept the fact, even Nixon, he accepted the fact that he had to turn over the tapes, and that ended his presidency. The fact is that once you start to chip away at the trust and the belief in the institutions, already at a historic low, then you've got very little to hang on to.
But that's exactly what is happening. I think Brit Hume is the one who said it. He said that when Donald Trump won, and then it set in that the press and many in the Democratic Party refused to accept it and basically said, this is a danger to the country, this being Donald Trump, and we're going to destroy him no matter what it takes. So there wasn't that acceptance of what you just said, a transfer of power. There wasn't rooting for the president to succeed. There was, we're going to get him, and it's going to be nonstop, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
I think that's true, but I think it's wrong to begin history with the resistance to the Trump presidency. I mean, look at what happened when Barack Obama was elected, and who led the movement to discredit his presidency, to say he was illegitimate, to say he should never be in the White House because he was not born in Hawaii, but in Kenya, but Donald Trump.
But you can't compare the two because of there was no backing for that. That was a fringe play. Okay, now you can chastise Mr. Trump for buying into it, certainly valid. But there wasn't a mass press try to get Obama. There weren't leaks from very high-placed people trying to destroy President Obama. That's happening now.
When Trump ran for the presidency, he said many things, and he said them very straightforwardly. He said this election is rigged. He said the polls are rigged. He says the media are rigged. He said, for example, George Bush, president of his own party, had deceived us, lied us into the Iraq war. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad intelligence. He did it deliberately. Now, if that is not shaking the foundations of the trust...
So you're saying that he's getting what he deserves now? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm simply saying history does not start January the 20th of this year.
But you have to start with the power structure. A campaign is different than a presidency. So when this president was sworn in, certainly you know that the opposition, all right, said, we're going to get him. We're going to get him. All right, any way we can get him, we're going to get him. That is a subversion that goes far beyond any campaign rhetoric, does it not?
No, because what I'm trying to explain to you is that these things have a history, and the history begins with the erosion of belief in the institutions. When you say that a Republican president lied us into office, you are conditioning the country to believe the absolute worst. That is, by the way, treason. When you say that the system is rigged, and I'm not even sure I'll recognize the results of the election, for God's sake, Trump wins the election, and then he says the results were rigged.
Well, he's talking about Bernie Sanders, and that was rigged. But final question, do you see any kind of détente here, or is it going to be 4 years of the press and the Democratic Party doing whatever they can to destroy the man? Is that what we're facing?
I think that's what we're facing. All I'm saying is, and I don't approve of any of this, but all I'm saying is it's not a one-sided affair. This is a two-sided affair with the two sides undermining each other to the point where they really are in a zero-sum game to destroy one side or the other.
Okay. Charles Krauthammer, everyone. Water's on deck. Some anti-Trump people here in New York City say tourism suffering because of the president.